And welcome to the engagement tree. We welcome today Lucy Burton, 16-year-old from Warrington, giving us a keen insight into what it's like being a teenager in isolation. As always, or as regular, my co-partner Sarah Sanders joins us for some engaging conversation. And let's see where we go. Lucy, thank you for joining us on the engagement tree today. First and foremost, are you enjoying the fine weather we're having?
It's nice, yeah.
I'm finding myself having to cream my head on a regular basis. So, keen. Obviously, Lucy has done some work experience and she's written an excellent blog for us here at the Strive Group, and has always spoken incredibly well for someone of such an age. Obviously, most parents with children coming up to GCSEs and A levels will be ultimately panicking about what's going to happen regarding results, what's going to happen in terms of their future. Lots of stresses, trials and tribulations. But we're just going to kind of mooch through that now, really. So, I mean, Lucy, right now you would be preparing for your GCSEs, I suppose. So, if you weren't in lockdown, what would your life look like?
Well, my first GCSE would be the next Monday, so obviously I'll have like a timetable of revision, which would be like quite packed, and I'll have like a lot of pressure from teachers and parents, and it's like anxieties, but like different anxieties that we're struggling with through lockdown.
Now, do you know what that first exam would have been? Arts, okay.
So it would have been a 10-hour long exam.
10 hours?
10 hours.
So actually, you're actually quite... so how do you feel about not seeing them? For me, and just being open, and we had this conversation before, up until my GCSEs, I was performing very well. As soon as I went on revision leave, my attention span to education kind of took a little bit of a dip. So this would have benefited me no end. How do you feel about not sitting them?
I was absolutely the opposite. So I didn't do as well in my mocks, and that gave me a kick up the bum to get my head down and stop messing about and try harder. So it would have had a negative impact on me, and it's quite hard to understand, like, would we have judged it properly then? Like, do you feel that this is having a negative impact, or do you wish you had the opportunity?
At the beginning, when we all found out, like the majority of teenagers were quite emotional because we started to go to school the day we found out there was no exams. And I also had mock exams, so it was also like a lot of build-up of emotions. Like I was stressed about the exams and stressed about like how everything's going to happen. But then now, as like time's passed on, I feel like more relaxed. I don't have to sit the exams, and I don't have to spend hours revising. I get to more time to like reflect on more important things instead of exams.
And you've got your kind of plans for September, haven't you? You're going to college?
Yeah.
And do you know that kind of still goes ahead? Have you had contact with the college?
They've not said anything yet, no.
No. It's the uncertainty, I think, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. No one knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I should probably have checked. At the moment, have they given you a date? Do you know what's going to happen? I mean, in your position, that's got to be not necessarily worrying or scary, but it just puts you in a little bit of a difficult position, I suppose.
Yeah, it's hard for all of us. Like, me and my friends like talk about not knowing and how it's difficult, and we all like nag our teachers, but they don't know either.
Yeah.
So it's out of their control as well.
And I think that's the fear with the coronavirus in general. It's that people just don't know, and people are trying to make the best of a bad situation. I think I'm quite fortunate in the fact that we can still progress on, but something as important for you as your next step into college, that's quite a worrying time, really. But
yeah,
you seem to be doing okay. You seem to be keeping your spirits high.
Depends what day it is, I think, doesn't it, for everyone? Like one day, I spoke to a friend about this yesterday. One day, your emotions can go completely, like, on a scale ridiculous to normal everyday life, can't they? Normally, if you have a bad day, you pretty much have a bad day or a bad couple of days. But now you can have the world's worst morning and then an okay afternoon, and then the evening you're happy as a pig in mud because some very small thing makes you. You've got your exam date set, haven't you, Lucy? That's one thing you do know now. The results day, exam results
Yeah,
day.
it's going to be the same as it was meant to be originally.
And you have no idea how you've done. I suppose it's pretty much like a test, really, but at least
it's
when
weird.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's out of my control. Like, I wanted to revise and prove to everyone how well I could do, but now it's completely out of my control, and it's just down to my teacher. So it's quite stressful.
And how are your friends doing, and other people that you've kind of kept in touch with from school? Are they feeling similar feelings to you, or is everybody dealing with it differently?
I feel like at the start, when we were all in school, the first morning when we all like found out, like everyone was emotional. Like, it was just quite depressing for like the last day of school. Everyone was really upset, but like I feel like as time's progressed, like it's calmed down a bit more. We've all got like our heads around it. So yeah.
It's almost like settling for it, isn't it? There's no point fighting it because there's nothing you can do. So
yeah, it's out of our
making the most of
now.
it. So aside from schoolwork then, how would you describe your life as a teenager has changed socially?
I feel like I've been able to like reflect on more things like friendships and like relationships instead of just exams, and I get more time to think about myself and like self-care rather than the stress of school and thinking about that. And I feel like from like the repetitive lifestyle's changed, that I've turned like less productive and more like a lazy attitude on life, having like less of enthusiasm to do like simple tasks, which I know a lot of teenagers are struggling with lately as well.
Give us a for instance, like what?
Like taking your dog for a walk, it seems like a lot more like than it should be.
Yeah.
And do you think that's from having that almost routine taken away? Yeah.
Yeah, like my school started quite early compared to other schools, so I was just used to waking up early, walking to school, coming home about 5 or 6 every day. I was just used to being busy all the time, but I'm not used to having to stay inside and do things all the time. Yeah.
So your walk to school is about 30 minutes?
An hour.
An hour. It takes Lucy an hour to walk to school normally. So and that's walking.
Especially with my sister.
You walk to and from school, don't you? So that's 2 hours out of your waking day before you've even done, like you say, you have a long school day as well. Do you start at, what time do you start and finish?
8:20 until 4/5, because in year 11s you have to stay till 5.
So you actually don't have a great deal of day left, and you get quite a lot of homework as well, don't you? So now to have so much time on your hands must be, like, the answer to that question is your life has changed dramatically, hasn't it?
Yeah. Feels less peaceful, but then there's also like anxieties and overthinking and
yeah. How are you dealing with overthinking?
I feel like there's some moments where like I just overpower myself with emotions and get upset, but then I feel like I'm dealing with it pretty well considering the whole situation.
You almost like surprise yourself a little bit, don't you? I generally overthink anyway. So and I'm out and about massively in day-to-day life. So I'm a little bit like you. My life has changed probably more dramatically than not a lot of my friends, but most of my friends. And it's trying to just switch off those thoughts that are just going around your head, and part of you knows that there's no way there's any reality in them, but it's just so difficult, isn't it? I just change my scenery as best I can.
And I suppose the key part is that lack of interaction with your peer groups and your friends, isn't it? I know that's something that I've probably struggled with more than I thought, to the point where I took a week where I just didn't communicate with anyone. how have you found keeping in contact with your friends and peers, really?
Well, thanks to like social media, like we still do have contact where we can ring each other, but it's just not the same as like going to school, seeing all your friends and laughing. It feels more like fixed, more than like a relaxed relationship. So
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I know I've noticed last week, towards the end of last week, I've stopped talking to even my closest friends as much because actually you've got nothing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
We
There's
find
nothing
ourselves talking
exciting
about
going on.
wheelie bins, and you're like, oh, oh.
Only so many times you can tell them about hoovering or painting the fence.
Yeah. In fact, Lucy, we've had a conversation about my wheelie bin at some point, I think, so that's even more worrying.
Yeah.
What I mean, and this is a question for all of us really, but predominantly yourself, Lucy. What have you found most difficult about the isolation?
Like similar, like I've said, like the normality of life and being able to just go to school. Like I've always been quite studious and I've always loved going to school, and it's quite a shock not being able to like interact with my peers and my teachers. And like little things like nipping to town with your mum, which is quite mundane in some ways, but it's like you don't understand how much you cherish moments like that when you're in lockdown.
The excitement of a supermarket shop has never been the same since isolation came in. I enjoy standing in the queue at Sainsbury's, 2 metre distance, just generally having a conversation with people because I don't even know they are. But just that kind of human interaction. You obviously live at home with your parents. I have naughtily been around and social distanced in the garden of my parents whilst they were in the conservatory and I was in the garden. There was a pane of glass between us, so there was no touching. But that I can imagine is probably one of the most difficult things for a lot of people. Equally, probably as difficult being in the house with them constantly. What about you, Sarah? What have you found most difficult?
So I'm very close to my parents and I'm not able to see them at all right now and haven't for 2 weeks before lockdown. So that's one of my biggest things. I have asthma, so yeah, I'm not vulnerable as such, but there's no particular need for me to go shopping or do anything. Just being out and being with people is driving me insane, and it feels very like claustrophobic, doesn't it? Sometimes you just can't get away, and sometimes the nicer people are to you, the more irritating it is. It's like I was just going to say to both of you, if we'd have predicted this like last summer, if somebody had said last summer or November even, you won't be able to go out, go to work, but I think for me it's kind of not easier than I anticipated, but I think I've used the word settle quite a lot because you just have to give up and just say there's absolutely nothing I can do, so you have to make the most of the situation. Do you think it's been harder or easier, Lucy, than if somebody had made you guess this in November? I mean, you'd probably laughed at them as much as I would have, but
I feel like the whole situation is like it's not something any of us could predict. Like it's quite abnormal. Like none of us would have predicted this, so it's hard
would
to
you have
like.
thought it to be hard? You can't. You're right. It's hard to work out.
It's hard to like adapt to like these livings. Like it's never happened before, so it's confusing for all of us.
Does going back to normal life make either of you anxious?
Yeah. It seems scary, like having to. Well, I know it sounds stupid, but interacting with people like in day-to-day life.
Yeah, I think that's going to affect people more than they think as well. There's like,
mental health of all ages is going to be difficult. People working on their mental fitness now to make sure that not only are they keeping themselves physically fit but also mentally fit. I think is key. I can't wait to get back out. If I'm honest, I have found it both difficult and easier in certain ways. I think the time has flown by. I think weeks are flying by. I think I'm finding myself busy all day, every day, which massively surprises me. I really thought that I'd be struggling to find things to do. My lines of communication with naturally everyone through Zoom or House Party or WhatsApp calls or every other. I've probably spoken to more people now than I did when we weren't in isolation. So I can't wait to get back. But for me, the easiest part has been how easily I've fell into this and operating in this fashion through technology and Zoom calling.
Lewis,
I
I've
think
got. Well, I'm sorry.
I think like Ben said that time's flown quickly. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't
has
feel
it?
like it's been 5 weeks.
No, doesn't. That's bizarre that we all actually agree on that as well, because yeah, it doesn't feel like 5 weeks. So quick question, Lucy. Ben mentioned before, Lucy, you wrote the blog for us last year, which created a massive amount of interest, and it was regarding social media and the effects of social media on teenagers and people your age. And do you think that there's been massive changes in social media and the effects on teenagers? Have you found anything different? Are you using it more, less?
I feel like I expected it to use it more, but when I've looked at like the statistics on my phone, I've actually been using it less.
Have you?
Yeah, which is quite shocking. Like I know a lot of people have been using it more, but I've been spending time like in the garden and watching TV, which are things that I don't usually do.
Okay.
So yeah, it's quite like it's quite repetitive going on social media every day, and there's like you said, there's not things to talk about anymore.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've noticed people have been using it less.
Yeah. I mean, I use, well, Ben and I probably both use it quite a lot for work, but looking at those stats will be interesting. I'm gonna have a look at my son's later, actually, because yeah, I know he's watching a lot of videos and films and series, so I wonder if his has dropped as well, because like you say, nobody's got much to talk about. Not doing anything, are we? No gossip.
Yeah.
Or creating TikToks.
Yeah, I've been doing a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That'll have to be my weekend. Get Dylan to do a TikTok with me.
it seems to be the future.
So, Luce, what are you most looking forward to after lockdown ends?
I feel like when we come out of lockdown, it's going to be like a new start for me, like being able to, I would have finished school, would have got my results, and I would be going back to college, which is something that I've not experienced before. So I feel like, although the whole like pandemic has been quite challenging, it's like helped me reflect on my life and helped me like flow into adulthood, basically.
Really? Yeah. And you feel like you'll be more prepared? Do you feel like you'll be mentally kind of, because you've had time to reflect and think about what you want out of the future, do you feel like you'll be more prepared than you would be? Although you'll probably be a little bit anxious at first, be kind of more headset and ready to go.
Because if the lockdown wasn't going on, I would be revising, but I've been getting like books that I would be studying next year anyway and started looking at them, which gives me a head start in college anyway. So in the long term of academic progress, this has kind of helped me a lot.
And what are you doing in college? Remind us.
I'm doing combined English, sociology and law. So quite written-based subjects.
So can you start, you will have never done law before, can you start researching and getting some experience, if you like, in that now?
Yeah, on the website of my college, it gives you like the perspective of everything you're going to learn, so I can start, I've been watching videos and like looking over some basic tips.
That is excellent. The fact that you are actively already starting on what you're going to be learning next year is such a proactive step. You should, that's fantastic, and also shows the character that you have, which should be applauded. Because you are in the mind. There will be lots of people who aren't already looking. We always try and plan ahead in business. What they always say in business, you should be planning 3-6 months ahead. Effectively, you're already in that mindset and you're still in education, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I feel like all teenagers aren't like really looking forward into the future, more like staying in what's happening at the moment and just staying there, like watching series, looking to the future. which that's what I've noticed through like my friendship groups.
Oh, you stuttered a little bit there with the connection, I think.
Yeah, I lost connection a little bit.
Yeah. So what were you saying then about people staying in the current, almost staying in the current mindset and not looking to the future?
Yeah, I feel like people have like kind of lost interest of like school, and now the exams are out of the picture, that people are forgetting about college and having to go up into higher education.
So, and we see this in business where there's an awful lot of businesses that have furloughed people, and they're almost just shut the shutters. Right, we'll deal with this when we come back. In exactly the same situation as the people who are stopping their education, those people who are having to restart from a standing start will take longer to pick up to speed. Whereas those people who even just do a little bit now and keep moving, it's almost like a rolling start for when they kick in again. You don't have to do an awful lot. You just keep your mind, and that's all comes back to that mental fitness, keeping your mind ticking over, keeping it strong, keeping it as the muscle that it is. Yeah, but you're doing exactly the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, anything else? Because that, for me, has been a fantastically enjoyable conversation. Lucy, knowing you for the length of time that I have, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're always a fantastic, enjoyable conversation. It's always great to hear your thoughts, and you have a wise head on you for such a young lady. I wish you all the success in your education. The other part of it is I hope to see you working with the Strive Group properly at some point in your career, if we can afford you. So yeah, so it's been fantastic to chat to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you.
So on that note, if you'd like to hear and see more from the Strive Group and the Engagement Tree, hit subscribe. And that's goodbye from me, and goodbye from Sarah, and goodbye from Lucy. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Engagement Tree. Take care all. Stay safe.